Detective Sarah Chen had seen countless strange cases during her 15 years with the lab, but nothing prepared her for what arrived on her desk that cold November morning. The envelope was old-fashioned, sealed with red wax, and addressed simply to the truth seeker. Inside, a handwritten letter claimed that Michael Jackson's death wasn't what the world believed. The writer, who signed only as a friend, provided coordinates, dates, and a cryptic message. The king never left his throne. Look beneath where they say he rests. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the words again. Michael Jackson had been gone for over a decade, his death ruled as cardiac arrest caused by a lethal combination of medications. The world had mourned, millions had grieved, and his legacy had only grown stronger. But this letter suggested something impossible, something that would shatter everything people thought they knew. She couldn't ignore it. The details were too specific, too precise. The letter mentioned a hidden chamber beneath Forest Lawn Memorial Park, constructed months before the public funeral. It described blueprints that were never filed, construction crews who signed unusual confidentiality agreements, and payments traced to offshore accounts. Most disturbing was a mention of a heartbeat monitor that allegedly continued transmitting signals for 3 days after burial. Sarah knew pursuing this could destroy her career. The Jackson family was powerful, the case was closed, and reopening it would bring media chaos. But she had sworn an oath to uncover truth, no matter how uncomfortable. She made copies of everything, locked the original in her safe, and began making calls. By sunset, she had assembled a small team of people she trusted completely. Within a week, they had secured a court order for a ground-penetrating radar scan of the grave site. The wheels were now in motion for a discovery that would change history forever. The night was darker than usual when Sarah's team arrived at Forest Lawn. Heavy clouds blocked the moon, creating perfect cover for what they were about to do. Despite having legal authorization, they chose secrecy. If word leaked before they found something concrete, powerful forces could intervene and bury the truth forever. Sarah watched as the excavation crew set up their equipment, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The ground-penetrating radar had revealed exactly what the letter promised, an anomaly beneath the grave, a hollow space that shouldn't exist. The technician, a nervous man named Marcus, kept shaking his head in disbelief. "In 30 years, I've never seen anything like this," he whispered. "There's definitely a chamber down there, maybe 8 feet deep. And there's something else, some kind of metal structure, possibly a container." As the crew began carefully removing soil, Sarah noticed something odd. The earth here was different from the surrounding ground, darker and looser, as if it had been disturbed more recently than the official burial date. Her colleague, Detective James Rodriguez, pointed to strange markings on the casket when they finally reached it. They weren't random scratches, but deliberate symbols, almost like a code. Sarah photographed everything, her camera flash illuminating the increasingly surreal scene. Then came the moment that stopped everyone cold. As they lifted the casket, they discovered it was remarkably light, far too light to contain a human body. The crew exchanged frightened glances. Sarah gave the signal, and they opened it. Inside, instead of remains, they found something that made her blood run cold. A mannequin, dressed in Jackson's iconic clothing, surrounded by newspapers from the day after his announced death. Beneath the mannequin lay a metal hatch with a biometric lock, still blinking with a faint green light. Someone had been here recently, maintaining whatever lay below. The truth was finally within reach. The biometric lock seemed impossible to breach until Sarah noticed something that made her pulse race. Beside the scanner was a small note, protected in a plastic sleeve. For the one brave enough to seek truth, use a backup. Beneath it, a simple numeric keypad glowed softly. The letter writer had included a 6-digit code on the final page. With trembling fingers, Sarah entered the numbers. The lock clicked open with a hiss of released pressure. What they found below defied all logic and reason. A stairway descended into a fully equipped underground facility, powered by solar panel concealed in the memorial's landscaping. The air was fresh, recycled through hidden vents. Motion sensor lights flickered on, revealing a network of rooms that seemed impossible to exist beneath the cemetery. The main chamber was a studio, filled with recording equipment, instruments, and walls covered with handwritten lyrics and musical notations. Everything was dated after Jackson's supposed death. Sarah's team moved through the space in stunned silence. One room contained medical equipment and empty prescription bottles, suggesting someone had been treating a patient here. Another held disguises, passports with different names, and travel documents to countries without extradition treaties. But the most shocking discovery was in the final room, a living space with a bed that had clearly been used, personal items, and a journal sitting open on a desk. The last entry was dated just 6 months ago. James picked up the journal carefully, reading aloud passages that detailed a desperate plan to escape the crushing pressure of fame. The writer described feeling trapped in a prison of public expectation, unable to live or breathe without millions watching. Death, the journal explained, was the only door to freedom. The plan had taken years to arrange, involving trusted friends who understood the impossible burden of being the world's most famous person. But something had gone wrong. The writer spoke of guilt, of missing family, of watching his children grow through hidden cameras and disguised visits. The words painted a picture of unbearable loneliness, of a man who traded one prison for another. Sarah realized it uncovered something far more complex than a simple hoax. On a table beside the journal, Sarah found a series of USB drives, each labeled with dates spanning the last decade. Her hands shook as she inserted the first one into a laptop. The screen flickered to life, showing Michael Jackson, unmistakably alive, sitting in the very room where they now stood. He looked older, tired, but his eyes held that familiar spark. His voice, that distinctive gentle tone known worldwide, began speaking directly to whoever might find this recording. "If you're watching this, then you discovered my greatest secret and my deepest shame," he said, his words heavy with emotion. "I'm not proud of what I've done. I didn't fake my death to hurt anyone or to escape justice. I did it to survive, to finally breathe without the weight of the world crushing down on me every single second." He explained how the pressure had become unbearable, how he couldn't walk anywhere, couldn't trust anyone, couldn't even look at his children without security teams and paparazzi documenting every gesture. His handlers, he claimed, had made him a product rather than a person. The videos progressed through the years, showing his psychological journey through isolation. Some recordings showed him creating music in the underground studio, pouring his soul into songs the world would never hear. Others captured him breaking down, crying uncontrollably, realizing that escaping his fame meant abandoning his children. He spoke about watching them grow up through news reports, about disguising himself to attend their school plays and graduations, always keeping his distance, never able to hold them or tell them he loved them to their faces. The final video, recorded just weeks ago, revealed why he'd left these clues. "I'm dying, this time for real," Jackson said, his face gaunt, his breathing labored. "Cancer, untreatable because I can't risk going to a real hospital. The irony isn't lost on me that faking my death will actually cause my death. I'm leaving this evidence because the guilt has destroyed me. My children deserve to know the truth. The world deserves to know why I did this, not to judge me, but to understand the prison that fame can become. I'm ready now to truly rest, and I hope somehow they can forgive me." The screen went black, leaving Sarah's team in shocked silence. Sarah sat in her office 3 days later, surrounded by evidence that would create global chaos. The Jackson family's lawyers had already contacted her, their message clear. Releasing this information would devastate his children, destroy his legacy, and cause worldwide turmoil. They offered everything: money, career advancement, anything she wanted to keep the discovery quiet. But they also made a compelling argument. Michael Jackson had suffered enough, his children had grieved and healed, and exposing this truth would only cause more pain without bringing anyone back. Her team was divided. James argued for full disclosure, believing the public deserved truth regardless of consequences. Marcus, the technician, suggested middle path: seal the evidence for 20 years, allowing Jackson's children to learn the truth privately before it became public. Sarah's supervisor wanted the whole thing buried permanently, fearing the legal and political nightmare it would unleash. Meanwhile, the medical examiner confirmed that the DNA from items in the underground facility matched Jackson's, and recent testing showed someone had been living there until approximately 3 months ago, when they apparently left, possibly to die elsewhere. Sarah reviewed the journal one final time, reading Jackson's last written words. "I learned too late that you can't escape yourself. I thought freedom meant being invisible, but real freedom would have been accepting who I was and setting boundaries to protect my humanity. Don't let my mistake be forgotten. Fame without humanity is just a beautiful cage, and no one should have to die to find peace. These words haunted her, revealing a tragedy that transcended the question of guilt or innocence. She made her decision. Sarah held a private meeting with Jackson's children, now adults, showing them everything their father had left behind. She watched them process the impossible truth that their father had been alive, watching them from the shadows, loving them but unable to reach them. Their tears and rage eventually gave way to understanding. Together, they decided the world didn't need this truth yet. The evidence would be sealed, the underground facility dismantled, and Michael Jackson would be moved to rest beside what they found, a letter he'd written to be buried with him, apologizing and explaining everything to whoever eventually discovered his secret. The official report stated that the investigation found nothing unusual at the burial site. Sarah returned to her regular cases, carrying a secret that would haunt her forever. Sometimes late at night, she wondered if Jackson had finally found the peace that eluded him in life. The truth had been found, but sometimes the kindest thing truth can do is wait. The world would continue celebrating Michael Jackson's music and legacy, never knowing the desperate price he'd pay for freedom that ultimately eluded him. Perhaps that was how he would have wanted it. Remembered for his art rather than his anguish, his music rather than his mistakes.